Hello and welcome to Wake and Bake News, and I'm your host, Shampoo VTA, Kelly Davis, and how are you on this Monday, June 27th? I have to move the bottle out of the way so I can see. 2016. So I found some good stories to talk about this morning, and I have a little bit of dabs that I get to do for my show with you. You get to see, and I'll show you what I have. This is again the lamb's bread. Looks like my dispensary is running out of this wonderful God-given medicine that is not produced by some kind of a lab-coated lab mouse, white mice in a lab coat that was trained in some college somewhere to believe this and that and the other that may or may not be true. God help us, the public. Yeah, why am I going off about that? Okay, so the first story I'm going to talk to you about is this GW Pharmaceuticals research that they're talking about in Forbes magazine about how marijuana does help with epilepsy. And their new research proves that. But of course, they're producing a pill, as usual. Another pill, you know. And oh, lo and behold, there are side effects when you try to take something that's manufactured naturally in a plant and force it into a pill. Oh, lo and behold, there are side effects. So I'll read this to you. It's super frustrating. Get this thing full first. Go. It's bizarre. I wonder when, maybe one day they're going to make having a child naturally, illegal. That you're going to have have a child in a laboratory because a woman's womb is too natural. We got to put a middleman in there somewhere. We can't have you doing that on your own. We got to have a factory, and we got to have guys in lab coats in the clean room and gloves, and we got to have, college degrees in there and jack up the price to thousands and thousands of dollars for machines to go beep and boop and all kinds of stuff. That's the way they are about the marijuana plant. It's like, no, we can't have nature. We have to tear it all apart into its very, individual chemicals and put it in a test tube, and then it's safe for human consumption. Nobody notices how fucktard their fucking world is at all. They just think this is because a college told me. That makes it true. Wrong. Yeah, you're saving people's lives, but half the shit I think they're making you do is probably a waste of time. Cheers. You're taking something that should take no time at all to manufacture into a possibly, life-saving medicine for somebody. But no, they want to put middlemen in, and they want to put carpetbaggers in, and it's not going to be good enough unless it's got a stamp, it's got a regulation, it's got this, that, and the other. And they're going to put as many fucking people and regulations between you and that natural plant as goddamn possible. And I'll tell you why. It's because the medical world cannot cope with natural remedies. They just can't. It just makes them go, not that all natural remedies work, but the whole system is not, you're not going to find, like I say in this article when I'm reading it, you're not going to find a doctor who knows how to garden, who knows about pesticides, who knows about pests you may have to deal with, different fertilizers, different soil mediums, different growing techniques, how to trim, you're never going to find a PhD doctor educated at Harvard University who knows jack shit about any of that. He is one ignorant, primitive, caveman motherfucker when it comes to producing one of the most life-saving fucking medicines known to man at this time in history. He's the most ignorant motherfucker. He's like primitive, out of a cave, picking his nose, picking his butt, dragging his knuckles, mouth breathing, and then to make themselves feel better, they'll take it all apart and put it in a pill, and then they'll try to convince us now they know what they're talking about. And I'm like, no, you're 30 years behind. Shoving it in a pill, putting it in a gel, making it into a drink is not going to convince me you know what you're doing. I want to see the plants. somehow manufacturers are always preventing you from seeing the quality of their plants. What the fuck is with that? No, the plants are secret. You can't see them. Why? Because they're shit? Is this photograph actually your fucking place, or is it someplace else?
Marijuana-based drug helps kids with rare form of epilepsy in new study. An oil derived from marijuana plants proved effective in a rare form of epilepsy that affected 30,000 Americans, its maker said this morning. GW Pharmaceuticals, a London-based company, is developing a drug called Epidoxol, a pharmaceutical-grade form of cannabidiol, CBD, an oil found in the marijuana plant. In other words, pharmaceutical grade means that a big corporation did what you could probably do in your garage. It's just a simple extract using isopropyl alcohol, and then you just evaporate the alcohol away, and the oil you're left with is Rick Simpson's oil or Phoenix tears. An oil found in the marijuana plant, GW says, Epidoxol, an oil that is taken orally, contains only trace amounts of tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. You need trace amounts because CBD will attach itself to the receptors in your brain more readily if THC is there. Too much THC and it blocks it, but a little THC is just perfect. That's why the plant works so well on its own. The compound that makes pot smokers high. Yes, to all the rubes out there, the only thing they know is THC makes you high. Derp, derp, and more derp. GW grows marijuana plants that have been bred to produce lots of CBD and very little THC in greenhouses in England, and then purifies the oil using a manufacturing process. Yes, it's called isopropyl alcohol, and anyone can do it at home. Between the plant itself and the processing steps which are being taken, the product ends up being pure CBD, says GW's chief executive Justin Gower. In March, GW posted results of another study of Epidoxol that showed it was effective in treating Dravet syndrome, a form of epilepsy that afflicts just 6,000 children in the U.S. That result led GW Pharmaceutical shares to surge 120% in a day to $85. Today's news is that Epidoxol showed similar efficacy in a second clinical trial for a second rare epilepsy. Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which afflicts both children and adults. The average patient in the study was having 74 seizures that resulted in hitting the floor a month. Okay, so apparently seizures caused them to fall down. 86 patients received Epidoxol on the top of their current epilepsy medication, and 85% received a placebo. Those receiving Epidoxol saw seizures reduced by 44% compared to 22% in the placebo group. The drugs did have side effects. 74 patients in the Epidoxol had an adverse event compared to 59 in the placebo group. Only go with the plant and you won't have adverse effects. Side effects included diarrhea, sleeplessness, a decreased appetite, and vomiting. I don't think I've ever vomited from marijuana. Most side effects were mild to or moderate. GW Pharmaceutical says 12 patients in the Epidoxol discontinued treatment due to the side effects compared to 1 in the placebo group, and there was 1 death that in the Epidoxol group, which was not related to the drug. GW Pharmaceutical says that it will file with the Food and Drug Administration for approval in the first half of 2017 2017 for both Lennox-Gastaut and Dravet syndrome. That will require that a second study on Lennox-Gastaut currently ongoing is also positive. A second study in Dravet's is ongoing, but GW says it will not be required for approval. Shares in GW Pharmaceuticals are up just 10% to $92 based on the news. The big question among investors is whether the stock is fully valued a circulation that depends on exactly how big a market there is for Epidoxal. Bullish analysts at Leerink, an investment bank, says that GW is a buy based on a forecast that in 2022 the company will have annual sales of $1.2 billion. Where do you get that forecast? From legalization? Yeah, no, that will hurt their sales because then people can make this at home. This morning, analysts at Jenny Montgomery Scott issued an ill-timed report saying to sell the stock. Jenny's logic, its analysts expect 2022 sales to just $375 million. On risk, that shouldn't affect the company. Britain's pending exit from the European Union, Brexit, which shocked financial markets on Friday. I can't really see it having a material effect, says Governor Gover. We're importing a finished pharmaceutical ready for distribution and sale in the United States, and I can't see that system being impacted by the Brexit in any way. Really? Because now the pound is worth less than $1, so you won't make as much money as predicted. Where GW could have a big impact is on the continuing debate about the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Clearly, CBD can help some kids with epilepsy. The question will be if it should ever be homegrown, or if the market should be given over to more expensive pharmaceutical preparations. Another firm, Insys Therapeutic, is developing a fully synthetic form of CBD, which is horrible. That has horrible consequences.
Hey, boys! The unions, they're on a break. Well, the wildwood flower grew wild on the farm. We never know what it's called. Some said it's a flower and some said it's a weed, and I never really gave it much thought. One day I was out there talking to my brother, reached down for a weed to chew on. Things got fuzzy and things got blurry, and then everything is gone. I didn't know what happened, but I knew it beat the heck out of sniffing burlap. And I was pretty sure I was gone because I woke up and I wasn't there. I looked around for me everywhere and finally caught up with myself in open pasture land, laying flat on my back with Hershey wrappers between my toes, beating on my chest, singing, "Don't it make your brown eyes blue?" I come to, my brother was there and he said, "What's wrong with your eyes?" I said, "I don't know. I was chewing on a weed." He said, "Well, let me give it a try." Spent the rest of that day and most of the night trying to find my brother Bill. Caught up with him about 6 o'clock the next morning, naked, singing on the windmill. Bill was naked. Said he flew up there. I had to fly and get him down. All good things got to come to an end. It's the same with the wildwood weeds. One day a fella from Washington come by and he spied them, turned white as a sheet. And he dug and he burned and he burned and he dug till he killed our cute little weeds. And then he drove away. We smiled and waved, sitting there on that sack of seeds. Y'all come back now. You did?
CBC.ca. News, Canada, Toronto Council marijuana dispensary raids. Toronto councillors urges for a halt to marijuana dispensary raids. Pot advocates call for dialogue to ensure safe and open access. Yes, the dispensary raids look about as knee-jerk and hateful as anything that I've ever seen, as as raids on perhaps an LGBT nightclub or a black jazz club of the 1930s. This is the same sort of derpity-derp thinking that we have from our leadership across the world, whether here in America or there in Canada. The same brilliance that brought us the Brexit, the same genius at work. The highest forms of life form the planet has to offer. A Toronto city councillor is slamming police raids of marijuana dispensaries in the city as a waste of taxpayer money. Oh, but a good show, isn't it? And that was money that was not well spent. Jim Kerrigan's said Monday in response to last week's raid, it was a knee-jerk reaction because of a couple hundred emails. Yeah, mostly coming from dispensaries, legal providers that were complaining that their customers would much rather go to the dispensaries like in Toronto than the stinking legal providers that Canada has. I think I would have made that choice too. That's just being a smart consumer, as we were all raised to be by the same said government. The councillor was joined by marijuana advocates ahead of a municipal licensing and standards committee meeting. Toronto vows to crack down on marijuana dispensaries. Marijuana dispensaries sell pot without doctor's note. Oh, boo-hoo. Crime of the century. My God, send in the tanks. What is the matter with these people? You send in a guy with a clipboard and he finds them and we're done with it. But you don't shut down a business and you don't shut down people's paychecks because that is self-destructive to a government that depends on taxes. Derp follows derp. Feds say marijuana legalization coming next spring. Yeah, after these raids, I wouldn't hold my breath for that. This is obviously more wax on, wax off by prohibitionists. Michael McClellan, who represents the Toronto Dispensaries Coalition, said he wants to see a collaborative approach as an alternative to enforcement action. Oh no, goose steppers are on the field. They shall goose step. Another brick in the wall where we're wanting to start a dialogue today, McClellan said, adding he wants to see safe and open marijuana access for those who need it. But the government wants to see 10 or 15 legal providers that they have contracts with making money hand over foot, selling you shit that they will say is perfectly safe and better than anything anyone else on earth can possibly grow because we're the federal government and we say so. We get the same shit here in America. Yeah, some stupid West Virginia ridiculous cornfield or playground is supposed to grow all the marijuana strains for all the diseases known to mankind, and they're going to test it for its efficacy there. Same bullshit scam that Canada's pulling right now. It's just that they have legal providers and we have this NIDA, but it's the same bullshit scam. Pot for patients. On Friday, CBC News reported 23 people were arrested in police raids of 4 marijuana dispensaries. 23 people who were stopped in the middle of their everyday lives where they were earning money and making wages in order to make the police look all amazing and wonderful. Then they sent them home with probably half a day's pay or whatever because they got raided early in the morning or halfway through the day. And you're out the rest of your pay and the cop makes overtime. Do you see what's going on here? The police like to say that marijuana is a money grab. You want to know who they're grabbing money from? Them. That's why they're mad. Because they don't have a piece of the pie yet. And they're bent out of shape like hell about it. That's why they want DUI. They want some sort of way to test people for driving under the influence because they are on drug war welfare right now. This is drug war welfare. And they don't want to see that money stopped. And because nobody is properly regulating and nobody is gathering taxes to offset the monies that they would have gotten from drug war bus or drug war money or drug war support or the federal government or whatever the fuck the sham was, okay, they're going to go nuts. And this is what it looks like when the police lose their shit. I have a lot of respect for the police chief and the way he thinks, the councillor said, but added that when it comes to the raids, we don't see eye to eye. Medical marijuana users Jesse Beardsworth spoke out in support of marijuana dispensaries. I feel very strongly about patients' rights, she said. In May, Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders noted that any dispensary claiming to be distributing marijuana to give access to patients are doing so to make money. And the money that they would have been making off of these busts. So the police are literally crying a river, and they're telling you how greedy and needy they really are. And they're going to take what they want from you, whether you make laws or not. They'll find a way. That's what that police chief is telling you very clearly. We don't care what your opinion is. We're the police. We have guns, and you can't stop us. They are distributing for monetary gain. Yeah, like you're policing for monetary gain. Let's make no mistake about it, said Saunders. Let's make no mistake about it that the police don't like someone else dipping into their trough. And that's what this is about. This is a battle for money. I am so glad that the police come forward and talk about how they're butthurt that they're losing money from the drug war and they don't like these dispensaries. They're making money, so they're going to reverse the trend by doing this. No matter what any elected official says, no matter what any responsible citizen says, they don't give a fuck. They're in charge. That's called a coup. If they're very concerned about the well-being of people, when I would expect that they would look at the regulatory process, have a standardization of how it's being manufactured and distributed, i.e. the LPs, identify with the quantity of THC is in the production, and also be able to validate through quality controls that it is in fact correct. In other words, they're going to be able to do whatever they want because the federal government in Canada is dragging their feet, giving the police in Toronto leeway to do whatever the fuck they want because no one has actually set rules. So there it is. The police don't like you trying to make a new market that will help children and patients because it takes money out of their pockets and it makes them right crazy. And so, fuck your patients and children. We're going to raid the fuck out of whatever we want. Because we're the police and we have guns and we're in charge. Civil servant, haha, is that what you thought? No. This is a fucking military coup. Only facilities recognized by Health Canada are legally allowed to distribute medical marijuana, i.e. the LPs that I've been talking about, government weed. In other words, now the police officer is telling you, do not buy the drugs that you go and find on your own or your doctor prescribes for you. Only buy the drugs that your government prescribes, or I'll come and bust you. Now tell me that does not sound like a fucking science fiction goddamn nightmare. Now the police are going to be standing next to your doctor telling you what you can take, how much you can take, and whether or not that drug is allowed to help you. I had no idea that the police forces were filled with medical experts. The city's Director of Investigation Services for Municipal Licensing and Standards said in May, fuck you. That's what I got to that fucking answer. I swear to God, if America coughs up some kind of American government weed, my fist will fly from California to some senator's face in Washington. Dear God, I pray that the Lord in heaven gives me strength. Because if America ever came up with such a fucking idiotic idea, oh my God, I would lose my shit. I would lose my shit. That is not how we do shit in America. I do not take it in the ass from people with a badge or people in government just because they think they fucking know something. Not ever. Oh my God, I don't even know how you people in Canada can put up with this sickening, disgusting fucking shit. I would lose my mind if I had some goose-stepping, red coat wearing motherfucker telling me what medicine to take. Oh my Lord. Oh, you would see what made America great. I'll tell you what, right now, my family's been here for over 200 years, and you would find out what makes America great. You would find out what excellence is. Real damn quick. Real damn quick. You may, oh, son, oh, don't you ever think of this fucking stupid idea here. I would lose my shit on you. Only facilities recognized by Health Canada. Oh my God, I'd lose my shit on your ass. If you ever tried to bring me some government weed in America, God help you. God help you is what I gotta say. God help you. Not to LCBO, last December, Ontario Premier Catherine Wayne said the government's opted LCBO is a solid option for legal marijuana distribution. It makes sense to me that a liquor distributor mechanism that we have in place, the LCBO, is very well suited to putting in place the social responsibility aspects that would be needed in place. All right. So isn't this interesting that in one aspect of the article, the police officer is pissed off that these dispensaries are selling recreational marijuana. Yet, it's perfectly okay for the federal government to sell recreational marijuana through liquor stores. Oh my God, that place is crooked as hell. You guys are in trouble in Canada. That is the most crooked sounding shit I've ever heard. Because the liquor stores in Canada are owned by the government. It's not like here in America where they're owned by nice Syrian people or some nice people that have moved here from another country and wanted to start a nice life, and they have a wonderful bunch of liquor stores here in town where you can get some amazing wines, you know. They're classy, they're nice. The people are nice. I worked for them. They're very nice. No, in Canada, you gotta be attached to the government to sell liquor. Oh, they're crazy up there. They got some crazy shit going on up there. Oh my God, I hope none of that disease ever touches America. That's insane. That's insane. That's insane. Oh, I'm sure it makes sense to somebody who's been making hand over foot off of alcoholism for the government that they would now like to be able to sell shitty weed at overpriced prices to people, and that way they have to still turn to the alcohol. Oh my God, they're going to have a racket set up there. That's going to be a racket. The Canadian government's trying to create a racket. Keegan's acknowledged he wants to see a plan that ensures patients can readily access marijuana while keeping it away from children. Well, the things you've been talking about ain't gonna do that, son. I'll tell you why. Because LP weed comes in an LP bottle that you can put anything in and convince the police officers that that's LP weed, because the police officers just admitted that they don't have any way to test the potency of that marijuana or the strain of that marijuana or anything. So all you got to do is grow all the weed you want and shove it in LP bottles, just like at the end of Prohibition when the government issued a bunch of bottles saying you may not refill this under federal prosecution, and people went and did it anyway because that is a dumb fucking idea. For simpletons of government. Is that what we got going on in Canada? The simpletons of government? Am I insulting you? Too goddamn bad. You just fucking stood out there in the middle of a field and made yourself available within range of my guns. That's your own damn fault, not mine. Better get the fuck yourself to safety. Don't stand in the middle of a field and don't expect to get shot at, dummy. Not in combat. That's what you just did, fool. McClellan urges policymakers to rule out the LCBO as a viable option for marijuana distribution because of the apparent dangers of mixing alcohol and marijuana. Yeah. No, See, here's what I see. It's not the mixing of marijuana and alcohol. It's that one is going to trump the other. And the one that's more addictive is going to trump the other. Because both, you're not going to offer people a safer alternative in the same fucking store. Get it? How is that going to work? How are you going to have a compare and contrast when alcohol obviously had the field first, has complete command of the situation, and will be able to just make sure that the marijuana is not good enough so it cannot be an alternative to alcoholism? And since when do governments produce a drug to help people become addicted to? Whether it's their right or not, that's just fucking crazy. That's just fucking, that, I had no idea that Canada sold alcohol. I mean, that's just fucking crazy. In America, that looks like crazy time. That's crazy. That's what crazy people do. Your government's going to now sell you a fucking addictive drug? That's nuts. That's a horrifying, I mean, what do they call that? It's a conflict of interest. Big time. Especially when they're collecting taxes off of it. Here in California, California is not going to be selling you the weed. California will be licensing individuals who meet regulatory standards so that they can participate. And yes, those regulatory standards will be difficult to meet, but they are available to every citizen, not to only certain LPs that are invested in by Chinese, investors and fucking American investors that aren't even investors from Canada. So the stockholders that are making money off these LPs aren't even Canadian. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? I can't believe that you just sit there and take it in the butt like that. I'd be screaming my head off. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't realize you're taking a corn cob in the ass. But I would feel it. I'd be mad as hell. Like a hornet's nest. Federal government legislation on the legalization of marijuana is expected to be made public by next spring. God help you. Who knows what kind of fucktard idiot shit they're going to come up with. Following a campaign promised by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, something I think he's going to end up regretting, he promised. Because I think he's going to dick this up. After what I've seen with these Toronto raids and how he defended it, oh, he's going to dick it up. Watch this. It's going to get dicked up now. Everybody watch. You just see it coming. We're going to beat the shit out of you in the market worldwide because your LPs are going to be crippled ass off the fucking go. Off the starting line. They're going to be hobbled. Hobbled. Tied to the ground. And California, fucking huge manufacturers in a prison is going to go boom across the world. And you're going to be like, we sell our little LP weed. You used to sell damn good weed. You should have listened to Mark Emery. Even though that guy's kind of an ass for leaving supporters behind. See what happens when you allow divide and conquer to happen, fucking Mark Emery? I don't care if you don't agree with those people or not. You make sure everybody's on board because the police are waiting for you to see any weakness and go after you. And that's what they saw. So partially, it's your fault too because you were sweet. You figured you had the catbird seat. So you started picking and choosing who your friends were. And that's what the police were waiting for. They didn't raid your place first, did they? They raided theirs. Just something I'd like to point out. So maybe your deal ain't so good after all. And you made a big mistake by hurting some of your supporters. And now we know something about you. You never show your hand, your cards, before the game's over. So he dug and he burned and he burned and he dug and he killed all our cute little seeds. And then he drove away. And we just smiled and waved, sitting there on that sack of seeds. So, let's talk about some more sacks of seeds and smiling and waving as the man drives away after he worked so hard and turned white as a sheet. Yeah. Let's read Toronto. Councillor wants police to stop raiding medical marijuana dispensaries in Toronto and says it's a knee-jerk reaction. And, just because of a couple of hundred emails, probably mostly from LP supporters, and people are making money off of LPs or rival dispensaries. All right. So this is all about how the police have been wasting their time with their jackbooted, ridiculous red coat behavior of raiding all these dispensaries because it breaks the law. And even Trudeau agrees with that, is that we haven't created a law yet because we're dragging our feet. And until we actually do something, you guys are just not going to be legal. And trust me, we'll take time. And we'll slow the whole process down so we get all of you before we actually make this legal, and you aren't going to be part of this market. So much for Trudeau. That guy's baked in the pie now. He's as much a prohibitionist as anybody else. So we're going to sit here on this sack of seeds and smile and wave at Trudeau. Right? That's what I think Canada's going to end up doing. Just sitting there. Go ahead. You burn and you dig, and you dig and you burn. And you see what it gets you. Okay, so the next one I got here, I did get pissed about reading, even though it's positive. And that is because I had this experience when I worked in the school district. There was a lot of us that secretly supported Prop 19 and legalization before Colorado. And we got trounced by a bunch of fucking soccer moms that had fantasy worries, you know. And I'd like to point out, as I do when I read this, that any woman that allows someone to push her into buying a gigantic dinosaur gas-guzzling machine to tell her that she's going to be able to get her children quickly to soccer practice after school and all this kind of nonsense, and then it destroys the atmosphere and the future your children have, I have to think you're not a person that makes good choices. Those soccer mom vehicles that you had in the 80s and 90s don't bespeak of intelligence.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Now, I really like this other one. Can we bury this canard once and for all? And this is from Keith Strope of Normal, and it has to do with the ridiculous, what about the children? Weimer, Wormer Grimetongue, the guy that was like whispering in the king's ear from Lord of the Rings to tell him lies. Sire, don't listen to them. That's a guy from fucking any guy from Smart Approach to Marijuana. Sire, they tell lies. Don't listen to the old gray one. You mean Gandalf the Grey, bitch? Fucking slap that fucking Weimer Grimetongue up his ass. Shut up. What about the children? Smack a Zona. Hey, and thanks a lot, fucking soccer moms. You screwed up the vote in 96. We could have had more money for the education system. And many of you worked there. Don't think I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on that from now till the end of time. Throughout all time. blog.normal.org. Can we bury this canard once and for all? By Keith Strope, Normal Legal Counsel. Legalization does not result in an increase in adolescent marijuana use. Recent survey data released by the University of Colorado, the Health Kids Colorado Survey, a combined effort involving the state's Department of Education, of Human Resources, and the Health and the Environment, should be quite helpful in the several states with legalization initiatives expected to appear on the ballot this fall. The latest data, based on 4 years of actual experience, reconfirms that legalizing marijuana for adults does not result in an increase in usage by adolescents. But what about the kids? Although one might hope the rather silly argument that adults should only be allowed to engage in conduct appropriate for adolescents would be dismissed out of hand. In fact, that spurious argument seems to remain an excuse for many who oppose legalization. But what about the kids is the usual refrain. Like to stop here. Now, this obviously did not come from the Rocky Mountain Drug Task Force that has been having their officers moonlight across the country in different states that might be considering legalization to go and tell them fat lies and give them talking points so that they can argue against legalization, because the task force is just there to bullshit everybody. Obviously, the task force was not invited to be part of this by the Department of Education, Human Resources, or the Health and the Environment departments. Gee, I wonder why. But it seems like our Ventura County Police Chief, who is the head of the police association in this part of California, is all too willing to listen to their facts, supposed facts, even though they're not backed up by the state itself. You know what this is? This is like when John McCain's opponents during his presidential attempt to become a nominee for the GOP went and sent a bunch of letters out saying that he had an illegitimate African child, when that was absolutely an utter fucking lie. But it sticks in morons' minds, and it can't leave. And that's who these people are bottom trolling for, is the dumb fucks. How many dumb fucks can they get on their side? Because you can't get the intelligent people anymore. So you gotta sell them bullshit lies and scary stories. Scary stories around the fireplace with a flashlight held under your chin in the dark. Oh my God, if they legalize marijuana, all the kids will be trying it. Oh my God. And a man will come out of the woods with a hook on his hand. Get out of here. These are children's tales. Something that you tell little kids on a camping trip to scare them. Are you a child? Because somebody's been telling you a story. Chris Ingram of the Washington Post quotes the National Families in Action, a prominent anti-drug group, warning that legalized marijuana would literally dumb down the precious minds of generations of children. And that is a quote. And psychiatric Christian Thurston, author, prominent anti-marijuana zealot, warned that adolescents in Colorado would not be able to resist the siren song, the temptation presented by the pernicious plant. Reefer madness is never far away, and it can always outweigh any common sense for personal discipline. Oh yes, marijuana's siren song. You must put wax in your ears and tie yourself to the mast. Otherwise your ship will founder on the rocks. Jesus Christ. Talk about fairy tales. I mean, that's a straight up fairy tale from the old times of fairy tales. That's called the Illithid. We first ran into the argument with President and Nancy Reagan. I'm a big fan of theirs. And their Just Say No program in the early 80s. Just say no to any sort of rational, intelligent conversation, in which they successfully shifted the public focus for a time from the damage being done to individuals needlessly arrested on minor marijuana charges to the possible harm being done to adolescents who might somehow unexplainably be harmed by responsible adult use. Similarly, we discovered from exit polling following the unsuccessful California legalization initiative in 2010 that one of the two concerns expressed by those who opposed the measure was the fear that there might be a spike in adolescent marijuana smoking should the initiative pass. The second fear was a spike in impaired driving on the road. And I know the groups that were doing this because I was at a high school working as an employee. And after the vote, here I am standing in the hallway with 3 adult men who are employees of the school district with credentials saying, what a terrible shame that we really needed the money. We're going into a recession. People are about to be laid off. We really need the money. 3 steps away from us was about a group of 4 or 5 women, right? Soccer moms that worked at the school, and they all said this, and we overheard them, and you should have seen all of us turn our heads like we in disbelief as they go, well, thank God that didn't pass. You know, more kids would have tried it. We all looked at them. And For the 5 years that followed, our education system in California suffered horribly. Cut back hours, cut back days, cut back programs, cut back time, cut back money. Tell me, ladies, was that ridiculous nonsense that you stood there in the hallway bitching about, and that's why you voted that down? Was that really worth it in the end? Because you lost out on an enormous opportunity and a ton of money that went to Colorado instead of California, and did not do dick all to help the education system. And in the long run, you hurt those kids more than you helped them, because you are a born sucker who listens to lies and doesn't use their brain. Should have seen me and those other teachers looking at them. I'm not a teacher, but I was in shock. You should have seen those men's faces with their educations looking at those ditzy flippin' women who did not have educations and were volunteers or they were part-time employees. They tanked the school district for 5 years with their stupidity. Oh, trust me, nobody was happy with them. I can tell you I saw that happen. I can tell you exactly what kind of fool thought that was brilliant. According to previous marijuana.com articles on the topic of Monterey bud, the purpose of Colorado's comprehensive survey is to gather factual information and useful data. Yeah, to offset the ridiculous nonsense that the Colorado Rocky Mountain Drug Task Force is spewing across the country uncontrollably because they're butthurt that they've lost revenue. By collecting this data every 2 years, the information can then be utilized by both public and private organizations, including schools and parents, to identify trends and enhance programs that improve the health and well-being of young people, unlike what the fuck we've been doing for the last 30 years. Let's hope this finally puts the stake through the heart of those who insist on claiming that sky will fall if we end prohibition, and that our youngsters will be stoned out zombies. It turns out legalization has no impact on the usage rates of adolescents, but common sense tells them marijuana is far safer than smoking tobacco, and I would like to add, drinking alcohol, and taking some pharmaceutical pills. And don't think those manufacturers aren't really upset about that. Now, the next one we have is great. I love this one. This is about how the gay rights movement and the marijuana movement are actually together and have been, and I knew this, because of AIDS, because of what happened with AIDS. Fucking idiot fucking Reagan fucked his own drug war when he ignored AIDS. That's what I'm talking about. This government and every moron that's attached to fucking prohibition is doomed to fail. It's just a matter of time of piddling away at them. You just got to keep knocking. Oh, you're still doing this, huh? All right. If you like pain, I guess I'll say you're a sucker for pain. And I guess that's what we got to go and do. You're a sucker for pain.
Torture you, take my hand through the flame. I torture you, I'm a slave to your games. I wanna chain you up, I wanna tie you down. I'm just a sucker for pain. I'm a sucker for pain. I got the squad tatted on me from my neck to my ankles.
Extract.suntimes.com. How gay rights advocacy gave rise to the marijuana movement. We owe a great deal as activists to the gay liberation movement. I saw a fascinating little documentary piece about Greenwich Village and how gays would come from all over to be able to live freely in Greenwich Village. It would be like, imagine if it was, that's where legal marijuana is. Greenwich Village is the only place where you can smoke pot openly in a bar. It would be the same idea, right? Except that instead it's a lifestyle choice and they're trying to find love instead of medication or just, you know, a calming moment from the storm like we are. Okay. So the cops apparently raided this gay bar in Greenwich Village, and you know, there was rules like you could wear women's clothing, but you had to have 4 articles of the clothing that belonged to your sex. Otherwise, you were accused of being an imposter, an impersonator. You're impersonating a woman, trying to get away with things by impersonating a woman, because homosexuality at the time was seen as a mental illness, so much like what we've been through. Isn't it interesting that when society doesn't like or understand something, it's a fucking mental illness? Yeah, so when they start naming something a mental illness, don't jump on that fucking wagon, because it's probably going off a cliff. The minute people start talking like that, go, oh, okay, no, you know, I don't like where this is going. I'm going to stay here, because you're doomed. Your talk is already not sounding successful. It's not the talk of a winner. Anyway, these raids prompted the gay community from that area to step out, to march, and that was on television, and that got everybody talking, and they had never intended to be activists or the people beginning a movement. They were just trying to live their lives. If you look at some gays from the time period, I mean, Roddy McDowell, Vincent Price, you know, Tad Hunter, they were not particularly upset with the way things were. They sort of, not that it was right, they accepted it. They weren't going to jump out and be activists for the movement. They had a career to worry about, you know. It was the events. It was the action the police took and the overreaction that kicked it all off. And the same thing for us. Same thing like in what's happening with Toronto, with the raids in Toronto. See if that does not end up having a gigantic reverse effect than what the police wanted. I mean, there is a term, it's called, there's a saying, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So you have to be careful about the energies you send out into the universe, because it comes right back and smacks you in the head. The FBI knows this, the CIA. Every time they have an overseas operation, they know there will be equal blowback. They have to expect it and prepare for it and make that part of their equation. Not, oh, surprise, we got dicked in the ass by our own activities. They always act surprised, but they always calculate if they can handle the blowback. I don't think the police do. I think the police are not the military. And I don't think that they act very wisely, and they don't act in unison. They do a lot of knee-jerk reactions. Because of that, they end up starting a lot of social movements that they never intended to start. Because they're just not very organized or intelligent. They're very self-serving. That has a lot to do with it. So we have a lot in common with the gay movement, and the gay movement has helped us because it's out of San Francisco, it's out of Haight-Ashbury, it's out of Greenwich Village, it's out of those places that not only would they accept you as a homosexual, but they would also accept you as a marijuana smoker, because it was all counterculture, because everybody was on our ass, so you had to find friends where you needed them. And obviously, later on with AIDS, marijuana became very important because it helped you to survive AIDS, which I'm sure really pissed off the government and the Reaganites. Oh my God, now they're using the drug we hate to save their lives? The people we hate, you know. Yeah, they hated them. I'm not going to sit here and paint history as being something shinier than it was. It ain't. My grandparents were racist. They were homophobes. They were afraid of Mexicans. They were afraid of black people. They were afraid of them taking their jobs. My grandfather was afraid of China. He was afraid of Japan. He was afraid it was union busting. I was like, get over it, Grandpa. It's a future. I got to learn to live with it. Whatever you say is very nice and interesting, and I am listening. But the fact is, I'm going to live this and not you. And I'm going to find a fucking solution to this that works for all of us. Not bomb Iran or whatever the fuck you think of. I love you very much, but that's over. It's my turn, and I got better ideas. Because I seen yours don't work that good. Unions only go so far. All right. The medical marijuana movement probably wouldn't have happened without San Francisco's gay rights movement. Marijuana policy reform and gay rights may at first appear to operate in entirely separate advocacy spheres in the United States, but the two movements actually share a deep common bond. In fact, the medical marijuana movement, which generally gave rise to the larger marijuana legalization movement, stems directly out of the gay rights movement in way gay advocacy gave birth to cannabis advocacy. It's really very simple, writes San Francisco Weekly reporter Chris Roberts. Legal marijuana doesn't happen without the AIDS epidemic. That's fucking exactly right. So I'm going to stop here and talk again. Some more bullshit. I remember in the 80s, everybody thought that Reagan and his fucking Republicans basically helped to spread the AIDS crisis, wanted to kill off gays, ignored it. And because of that, Reagan destroyed its drug war. You cannot win battles like this without the stupidity of your opponent. I've also heard something else we were talking about yesterday. Never interrupt your opponent when he's making mistakes. I do all the time when we're playing Flux, and they like to giggle at me because I don't, I'm using the wrong card, or I'm like, oh shit, not paying attention. So I know this experience. And they laugh at me and they go, never interrupt your opponent when they are making mistakes. We could not have done this without your stupidity. Thank you. Thank you for being the bigoted morons that you are. You're the black cat. Thank you. Thank you for being so stupid that you believed you were a good guy. Because that made the battle even more fun. Because you were completely fucking delusional. San Francisco 1990s. When HIV/AIDS began surging in the 1980s and 90s, a positive diagnosis was a veritable death sentence. Scientists didn't understand the virus. There were no antiretroviral drugs, no medical help, and no relief for suffering patients. As a matter of fact, you fucking get fired, thrown in the street, and see you later, gay. Why don't you go die where we can't see you? And that actually happened to a lawyer. Get the fuck out. You're dying of AIDS. We don't want to see you anymore. The gay community was hit particularly hard. Many people, mostly young men, suffered painful, agonizing deaths from HIV/AIDS, including Rock Hudson. Roddy McDowell went to go see Rock Hudson in the hospital, and they had to ask him to leave because he could not stop sobbing. That's how cool you guys are. That's how cool you've been for the last 30 years. That's what neat, cool Americans you've been. I hope you're real proud of it. The medical marijuana movement really started out of the gay rights movement. United for Care campaign manager Ben Polera told Watermark Online, one of the first campaigns to really run on this issue in California in 1996 was started, at least in part, by a guy who lost his partner to AIDS and used marijuana in his last days to try to give him a better quality of life. More from San Francisco Weekly. Along with death, real outrages were also required. A San Francisco police narc squad had to seize a 4-ounce stash of marijuana that a longtime San Francisco cannabis dealer named Dennis Purin had set aside for his dying partner. To acquit Purin, his partner, Jonathan West, had to drag his withered body into court to testify that the cannabis was his. It was one of the of West's last acts on Earth before he died 2 weeks later. That scene led San Francisco voters to approve a medical marijuana initiative, Proposition P, in November 1991, which after Purin became even more open about giving marijuana to anyone who needed it, led to the action and inaction in the state legislature that preceded the passage of Proposition 215, the country's first law allowing medical cannabis in 1996. So, take heart, heroes. The bad guys that are up against us will make all the mistakes that we need to win. They always do. They always have. In each battle, all you have to do is pick the winning side, and the winning side will make itself very clear to rational thinkers, while people who are foggy-minded or are prone to being conned and easily lied to will be led in the other group. And so sad, too bad for them. Perhaps it will wake them up that they are puppets, and perhaps it won't. But basically, your opponent is made up of half-ass morons that don't know what the fuck they're doing. And we are made up of rational thinkers that have the force of history behind us. And the more those idiots struggle against a Chinese finger trap that is legalization, the more they go down. They're even afraid to come out and talk about it. You don't see too many people with badges and stars and bars coming out spewing on TV like the last 5 years, have you? Yeah, because it ain't so popular anymore, and they know they're hurting their political careers by doing that. That's change, kids. It's easy to do. Never, ever let someone tell you you can't do it. Even if there are robots and machines and computers and surveillance and drones. Big fucking deal. You got a weakness, bitch. I'll find it. You're already fucking up and I'll find out how. I'll torture you. Take my hand through the flame. I'll torture you. Bitch, I'm gonna bring the pain. I'm gonna tie you up. I'm gonna beat you down. You're gonna cry, then be buried in the ground. I'm gonna tie you up. I'm gonna beat you down. It's your own damn fault. Stupid fucking idiot, fucking moron prohibitionists don't even know when they're fucking stuck in a fucking Chinese finger trap. I can't help it. You're a sucker for pain. I don't mind it ends slow. More pain for you. And I drink your tears. That's a go-go juice. This bitch runs on your tears. Be a fool. See what happens. Ha 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 ha. All right. Guitar pick. I love my guitar pick. Guitar joint holder. These are badass. They're so cool. They should make them like different guitars. I'd like to have a Fender one and a Stratocaster and a Gretsch. Have like a whole collection. All right. So now I'm done with the ranting. I will show you the keef I got from the leaves I just trimmed this morning, and that's just from one little thingful. That's not even like a whole bunch worked up. And that's the leaf right here that I just got this morning. And I can't even afford a Bovida thing or anything like that. So Bovida is very cool looking. I think that's a very good company, and I think that should move forward because those should be just practically handed out for free. That way more companies would see that you're using that in their jar, and they would put it in their jars when they're selling you a product, right? So I can't afford that, right now, and saving for a guitar and trying to pay for weed and everything. So instead, I took one of these packets out of the rice, or not the seaweed cracker things we had, right? And it's kind of like the Bovida thing. It's supposed to pull the moisture out of stuff. I wiped it off. I wiped off all the stuff from the snacks I was eating. And I put that in my bag, in there, my jar. See, I can't even talk. And hopefully that'll help reduce, because I noticed that if it starts to get, I don't know, if it starts to break down in the wrong way, weed will get a piney smell, and I don't think that smell is good. I think that smell is that things are, getting moldy, and there are things alive in there feasting off of your plants because there's still moisture, and that probably is not a good smell. So I've been trying to burp it and use these things to kind of help reduce the risk of it suddenly spiking and having that icky, piney, gross, or grassy taste that happens whenever you allow weed that you're drying to stay too moist and put it in a container. It starts to have this really not good flavor or smell to it. It's kind of just like a little thing I'm having to learn how to do. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm cheating. I'm using a fucking dehydrator to get the buds partially dehydrated, then burping and letting them dry out naturally. So I get them to a point where most of the moisture is out of the plant. They take it out, and everybody goes, don't do that. You're ruining the trichomes because of the heat. And I'm like, I put it down at the bottom away from the heating element. And yeah, I know it's still hot air, but so's the summertime. So it's working for me. And I know it's stuff people say don't do. I'm doing it, I got high, see? I think especially for leaves, it's fine. Oh, and now I'm through with that. So we'll do another dab here before I go. And oh my gosh, I'm getting good and high from this, which is nice. Because it's not like, I can't function anymore. It's just kind of like, oh wow, that's really nice. I haven't had that feeling in a couple of days, especially with the dab. I've been having a coast on plant material because I was saving money for the parts for the guitar, which, by the way, I was going to show you some of these parts. So I'll show you what my plan is right now while I have a chance. Let's do a dab first. And then while I'm stoned from the dab, I will talk about my plan. So my plan is that I don't know how to wire like a pick guard. I have a wood burning tool that I've been using to solder, which is legit. You could take something metal, hold it over a candle till it gets red hot, because this is the way I think my grandfather probably had to do it on the farm. I don't think they had electricity on my grandfather's farm in Ohio in the 1920s and teens and stuff, okay? So he got into building radios. Before there was a Radio Shack, before there was a shack, because I found stuff that had belonged to him when he was a teen. I was advertising for a Radio Shack, and it said stuff like, send in to buy parts, and then you could build it at home, because everybody wanted a radio. So that they would sell you parts so you could build your own, kind of like the way early computers were. And my grandfather was all into science fiction and all this kind of stuff. Losing my train of thought here. So anyway, I know what I'm going to need to have to solder, properly the parts together. And I know that the things that I have are not going to work for that. It can work for some ditzy soldering and pathetic soldering, but for really like on a circuit board or something like that, a bent up, burnt out, fucked up wood burner is not going to work. So what I did was I knew that you could buy pre-wired pick guards. So that's what I did was I purchased a pre-wired pick guard, and I will take all the components off of that without removing any wiring or unsoldering anything. So you just remove the parts off of it, and then you can recut the pick guard to whatever shape you're going to make the guitar body. So my plan is to buy everything that I need except for the body, design the body around what shape I can customize the pick guard into. That was a long story. It's difficult to explain. But you have to think of little things that you got to buy, like roller trees, and you got to think of tuners and what kind of tuners, and they have to be, if it's a Stratocaster style, neck and head stock, then you have to have 6 in line tuners, And I think that building the guitar, playing different guitars, helps me to learn more about the guitar. Plus, it forces me to not like, oh, I don't have my guitar, so I can't play bullshit. I know there's a lot of guitarists that can pick up any guitar and make it sound pretty good. They don't have to have their special guitar. It makes them feel good. And that's a beginner thing. Beginners are like, but I don't have my guitar. I should be able to pick up anything and know enough about where the scales are to make something of it. The other thing I did was I ordered another USB connection for my computer because I'm using a tape player right now to record whatever stupid shit I'm making up without any sort of knowledge of what I'm doing. Okay, just half-ass guessing kind of stuff. But anyway, I was basically smacked upside the head with, hey, you should get Reaper. Bap, 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 bap. I met a guy at the pawn shop. You should get Reaper. It's a free program. You can pay for it. $19. Da-da, it's great. Da-da, okay. Then my brother, you should get Reaper. Bip, bap, boop, boop, bop. Reaper. So, Reaper accepts the Rocksmith cable. So, I got the trial version of that, and I tried making some shitty music on it, just goofing around. They still haven't figured out everything, like how the fuck come I can record a track, and then I'm playing it back, and I'm playing along with it another track I want to record, and it covers over the top track, and then I got to move it. No, I don't want you over top of that. And I can't hear it while I'm playing. So I'm just looking and all you hear is a metronome or, but I record all this, with a beat and everything, like guitar and a drum background. Dun, 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 dun. And I go back to do over top of it or something. And you can't hear shit. I'm like, okay, look, I'm not good enough to just dun, dun, dun. I need to be able to hear what the fuck I'm playing along with, so I don't know how to do that yet, and I'm not sure you can. So I'm going to show you, I guess, this Reaper. I'm going to show you the parts I bought, and it'll take at least till the middle of August before I can even get started on the project, because the parts all have to arrive. So this is like my Volkswagen project. I love this part. I love this part. I love when the planning's over. I love the planning. I want it to be slow. I want to take my time, not rush it. Because the more you take your time, the more you see things that give you ideas, and the more you're like, ooh, I'm going to add that to my Volkswagen. Ooh, that's a good idea. So you take a year or so to think about what you want to do. You don't rush it. And then you order your parts, and you have to have all your ducks in a row, and you have to know where your parts are coming from. You have to know they're going to work together, and you have to know they're the right size and all this kind of shit, right? And all of that shit is fun. It's just fun. And then the parts start arriving, and you make like a pile. And you look at it, and you look at your bumpers, and you look at your headlights, and you look at the carpet kit and the seat covers and the headliner and stuff and the windows, and you watch it all come in, the bumpers that are gray, and you're going to paint them. And then once that thing's all together, you're like, I did that. And it's just an amazing experience. So I'm going to try to pull the same thing off with this guitar, is make it one of those experiences of, I had fun thinking it up. I had fun futzing with the issues of trying to create it. And then I'll have fun going, I did that, hopefully. You can always crash and burn on these projects. The thing that was the most common with me when I first started doing this kind of thing, thinking of a project, planning it, working through it, I would give up halfway through. I would give up somewhere after beginning, or something, an obstacle would come up in my face, and I would be frustrated by it and walk away and just say, okay, I'm never facing that again because it was a bad experience. And that was a mistake. And so I learned to work through those problems and take them as what kids say about video games. It's not a glitch, it's a feature. If something goes wrong, good, you're going to learn something. Be positive about that. Don't go, oh, fuck, this happened. No, you gained invaluable experience that most people wouldn't have had unless they had walked across the coals, the burning hot coals, you know. Same thing with the activist stuff, like maybe with Freddie. Don't be upset that you had that experience. You now have something that most people have never had, a piece of knowledge that can help you move forward in the future. It's what you do with it that's important, and not whether or not it was a bad experience. That's just going to come. It's like Flux, that game Flux. 1 minute, you got all these cards. It looks like you're going to win. Next minute, somebody's taking your whole hand away, and you're like, fuck. And you got to start all over again. Stock market's like that too. You just got to, that's part of the process. And maybe the next hand you're going to have is the win. And that one actually wasn't. And you don't know. You know, luck's part of the process, a whole bunch of stuff. So I think all these experiences are very good for us because it helps us to learn how actually the world works. And it's not, you know, you break through the line at the finish line and you're the first one through. A lot of times the ending's not so clear. Your winnings are not so definite. They're not so tangible. They're not something you may see for years. You know, it may not be as clear or defined a win as it is in the movies. Okay. And so I think this aspect of creativity, of creating an object like the guitar, the car, or having a movement, or making videos on YouTube, is really so much more, would somebody say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. That's the Iliad, right? That's fucking, you know, Sinbad and sails the 7 seas. Who cares about the fucking 7 seas? Sinbad sailing, that's what's important. That there's going to be another adventure on the next horizon, you know, Sinbad's going to handle that shit, no matter what it is, because you've seen him doing it before. And he keeps building on that, like a game, you know, till he meets his match, comes home and retires, whatever the story is. And then everybody's engaged by that story because they want the same fulfillment of meeting a challenge, whatever it may be. Artistic, or your family, your job, people are driven to aspire to that, you know. So I think I got way like thoughted, but fucky. But seriously, that's what I'm saying, is when you're creating it's because you desire that journey. You desire that challenge. You're choosing it for yourself. It is a hardship that you are choosing for yourself. So when it goes fucky, that's part of the experience that you should relish, not be, oh, well, that was a bad idea. Nothing is a bad idea, because if you did nothing, it'd be like, you know, finding fucking Dory, finding Nemo. Oh, you never let the kid do anything? That fucking sounds boring. What a shitty life. Sounds short and boring. No, let the kid go out and touch the butt. You go with him. Make sure the kid's safe, but let him think he's doing it on his own. But let the kid fucking touch the butt. That's how the kid defines his own existence in reality. By taking that risk. By showing himself that he can. Alright, so we'll look at some of the shit. And I'm going to try to play some of this music-y crap shit that I made last night. That I just didn't know, because you can't hear what the hell you're doing. Alright, so, but I'll try to do something. And look at these parts in this website.
Let's get into this, talking about the Reaper DAW in 7 reasons why I record with it. Reason number 1, I want to take you over to Reaper.fm. That's REAPER.fm. Reason number 1 is this: there is only one full version of Reaper that is downloadable. You may wonder about a particular recording software and think, boy, I wish I could just find someone that has that and I could try it out before I spend hundreds of dollars. Here's what I love about Reaper. The number 1 thing, you can download the full version of Reaper, the only version of Reaper that is available, absolutely free. You can download it at reaper.fm. It's available for both Mac and PC. It is available, we'll talk about this in a little bit, it's available in both 32 and 64-bit versions of it, as well as for the Mac as well. So you can download it. It will not cost you a thing, and it is giving you the ability to evaluate. The recommendation is for up to 60 days, and it is not a limited version of the program. Okay, when you download it and install it, you're going to be able to load the exact drivers you're using for whatever audio interface you're using, and you're getting the full version of Reaper. It's not a timed delay where it just quits working after a certain amount of time. It doesn't drop audio out every 30 seconds. You have the full version of Reaper at your disposal to try. You can run a whole entire project on it. You're going to get every bit of quality as those that paid and purchased the program. It's the same program.
So that's a project for the summer, and the theme's going to be black and badass. And I think I'm going to use cheap wood. I'm going to go and get some poplar and oak and like do a poplar face and then an oak bottom. And I saw that you can bleach the green of the poplar with just chlorine bleach treatment before staining, and it'll help the stain not come out weird. So I'm thinking about doing this kind of a thing, but I have months to look for wood for the body, and I'm going to design my own body. I had a picture. Where's my picture? I keep coming up with drawings of what I want to do. Something like this. Maybe cut down the headstock. Certainly reduce the size of the Stratocaster body, so you get that leg rest and some place to rest your arm on the guitar right here. So that's what I'm thinking. But I have to wait for parts to arrive and measure and draw templates and figure out where, because you're gonna have to figure out how the pickups fit in it. I'm gonna do 2-part guitar, so that way, I think I've said this before, you can cut out the holes and then glue it together, and that way you don't have to route out cavities, you know. Plus, I think 2 different kinds of wood would be very pretty. All right, I'm smoking some of that keef on top of leaf and keef. Basically, I think what most dispensaries would call a soup mix. And I see people smoking the soup mix. I did. Desperation. Desperate times. All right, so you stay high and goodbye. And hopefully, you know, in the next few weeks, like I keep saying, we're going to hear something from the DEA. And I know that Elizabeth Warren and several senators had, like I said, sent a letter to the DEA going, what the fuck's going on? And the DA is dragging their feet, like I said, dope. So here we are, and we're waiting for something to come out of them. And honestly, I think them dragging their feet means that they're going to make a decision they don't want to have to make. And that is probably good for us. So just like when a jury goes out and they're going to make a decision, the longer they take, probably the better it is for the defendant. They'd come back right away with a ruling if they had it. See? So I think it's a good sign they're putting it off. It's just aggravating. They're so childish. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. Adios.